A father holds the keys to his daughter's feminine identity, her sense of self-worth and her future relationships. And yet so many dads don't realize just how deeply their presence, or their absence, shapes the girl who looks up to them. Before a daughter ever understands the world, she studies her father. Before she learns how love feels, she learns how he treats her. The quiet truth is that one of the biggest parenting problems mothers and fathers face today is not knowing how much a daughter depends on her father's strength, guidance, and emotional steadiness to become the confident, secure young woman she longs to be. And that's where this book steps in. In Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, Dr. Meeker opens a powerful window into your daughter's inner world. She reveals why she needs her father more than culture assumes, and she shows the surprising ways a dad's everyday actions shape her identity, choices, and happiness. In this chapter-by-chapter journey, you'll learn how to become the steady, grounding presence your daughter is silently hoping for. You'll understand the emotional patterns behind her choices. And you'll discover practical, heartfelt ways to strengthen your bond, even if you feel you've made mistakes or started late. Before we dive in, know this: you don't have to be a perfect dad. You just have to be a present one. And this chapter begins by helping you understand why your presence is the most powerful force in her life. Chapter 1 opens with a strong, almost startling truth: your daughter cares far more about what you think of her than what her friends, teachers, or even her mother thinks. She may not say it. She may roll her eyes or act as if your opinion doesn't matter. But deep inside, she looks to you, her father, to tell her whether she is worthy, lovable, beautiful, and capable. You are the mirror she reads before she reads the world. From the moment a girl is born, she begins forming her understanding of herself through her father's reactions. She studies his face when she enters a room. She listens to his tone when he speaks to her. She watches how he treats others, especially her mother. These observations become her emotional blueprint, her inner map of how love works, how respect feels, and what she should expect from people. Imagine a little girl climbing onto her father's lap after a long day. She isn't simply looking for a place to sit. She's searching for reassurance: am I safe? Am I loved? Do I matter to you? When he wraps his arms around her and listens, she feels grounded. When he is distracted, dismissive, or impatient, she learns a different lesson, one that can grow into insecurity, people-pleasing, or doubt. Dr. Meeker reminds fathers that daughters often hide their longing for approval because they fear being rejected or appearing needy. So she may pretend not to care. She may act aloof. But inside, she is waiting. She's waiting for her father to notice her effort. She's waiting for him to affirm her. She's waiting to feel seen and valued. A simple, "I'm proud of you," can lift her entire week. In this chapter, Meeker describes something many dads overlook: a father's confidence becomes his daughter's confidence. When a dad believes in her, she learns to believe in herself. When he speaks encouragement over her, she learns to speak kindly to herself. When he shows her she is strong and capable, she grows into a young woman who does not crumble under pressure or depend on others for validation. In this chapter is how daughters interpret their father's involvement. A father might think, "I don't want to embarrass her," or "she doesn't want me at her activities." But the truth is, she does want you there, even when she pretends she doesn't. She looks for you in the stands at school events. She listens for your voice in the audience. She glances your way to see if you're watching. Your presence tells her, "You matter enough for me to show up." Dr. Meeker shares the image of a father who decides to attend his daughter's soccer game after weeks of being too busy. He stands at the edge of the field, unsure if she'll notice. But she does. The moment she spots him, her face lights up, not because he brought a gift or said anything impressive, but simply because he came. That small act becomes a memory she carries for years. A big part of this first chapter explores how deeply girls internalize their father's treatment of them. If a father treats his daughter with respect, she grows to expect respect. If he speaks kindly, she learns to value herself. But if he is harsh, critical, or emotionally distant, she may begin to believe she deserves that same treatment from future partners. This is why Dr. Meeker says something powerful: a father not only influences his daughter's present, he influences her future relationships. The standard she sets for love begins with him. She gives the example of a teenage girl who repeatedly chooses partners who disrespect her. When asked why, she shrugs and says, "I guess that's just what I'm used to." Without realizing it, she has adopted her father's silence, criticism, or emotional absence as her measure of what love looks like. But when a girl grows up in a home where her father honors her, protects her, and guides her, she enters adulthood with a sense of worth that makes unhealthy relationships far less attractive. Dr. Meeker begins to reassure fathers who feel overwhelmed or guilty. Many dads fear they've already failed or done damage. But she gently explains that daughters are incredibly forgiving when they see their father trying. It's the effort that matters, not the perfection. A father who chooses to be emotionally available today has more influence than he realizes. And speaking of influence, if you've been gaining value from this summary so far, this is a wonderful moment to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. It's completely free, and it helps you stay updated on powerful parenting book summaries that strengthen your family and deepen your connection with your children. Back in the chapter, Dr. Meeker shifts into something every father needs to understand: your daughter sees you as larger than life. Even if you feel ordinary, flawed, or unsure, she views you as the strongest, bravest person in her world. You are the first man she ever trusts. Your words become her inner voice. Your protection becomes her sense of safety. Your expectations become her belief about what she can achieve. Daughters, Meeker explains, crave three things from their fathers: affection, protection, and guidance. They need affection to feel loved, protection to feel secure, and guidance to navigate the confusing messages from society about beauty, sexuality, success, and identity. When a father provides these consistently, even imperfectly, his daughter grows into a young woman who stands firmly in who she is. The chapter also touches on how culture has downplayed the role of fathers, making many dads feel unnecessary or replaceable. But science and psychology show the opposite. Daughters with strong, loving fathers perform better in school, develop healthier friendships, delay risky behaviors, and experience higher self-esteem as adults. Fathers are far more influential than modern society. A scenario of a father who thinks his daughter doesn't need him because she's busy with friends and activities. But when she faces a tough decision, whether to join a particular friend group, how to respond to peer pressure, or how to handle her first crush, it is her father's voice she returns to. She wants to know what he thinks. She wants to know what he expects. She wants to know if he still believes she's capable and strong. This is why Dr. Meeker encourages fathers to be intentional with their time and attention. A short conversation before bed. A walk together on the weekend. Listening, really listening, when she talks. These small moments build the emotional bridge she will walk across for the rest of her life. As the chapter draws to a close, Meeker leaves fathers with one heartfelt truth: your presence is enough. You don't need special skills, fancy tools, or parenting perfection. You don't have to know all the answers. What your daughter needs most is your steady involvement. She needs to know you are on her side, cheering, guiding, protecting, and loving her, consistently and sincerely. Chapter 2. The second chapter moves deeper into a truth many fathers don't always realize early on: a daughter watches her dad more closely than anyone else in her world. Even when she seems distracted, even when she's lost in her own thoughts, she is quietly studying the way he carries himself, how he responds to stress, and how he treats the people around him. These small, everyday moments shape her understanding of what strength looks like, what kindness feels like, and what she deserves from the future relationships she will one day build. A powerful idea: your daughter doesn't just hear your words, she absorbs your character. A father might think he's teaching through big lessons or structured talks, but much of what a girl learns from him comes from observing who he is when he thinks no one is paying attention. She watches how he handles disappointment, whether he keeps his promises, and how he treats her mother or other women in his life. And without anyone saying a word, she begins forming expectations of how she should be treated, how she should behave, and how she should value herself. One story the chapter draws from is the picture of a dad who returns home late after a long day. He's exhausted, stressed, and tempted to withdraw. But when his daughter runs to him with excitement, something inside him softens. Instead of brushing her off, he kneels down, listens to her, and lets her know she matters. In that small moment, she learns that tiredness doesn't erase love, and she internalizes the idea that true strength chooses connection even when it isn't convenient. These tiny pieces of evidence form the blueprint of her emotional expectations later in life. Another example shows the opposite. A father who is physically present but emotionally distant unintentionally sends a message that she must compete for attention, prove her worth, or overachieve to be seen. She may grow into a young woman who is loved deeply by others but feels unaccustomed to consistent affection, searching for reassurance in the wrong places. The book gently reminds fathers that even their silence carries weight. It teaches daughters how loudly or softly they're allowed to speak in their own lives. Becomes part of the emotional fabric of his daughter's development, especially when she is very young. Children have a way of making meaning out of even the smallest gestures. If dad raises his voice often, she may assume conflict means instability. If he apologizes sincerely after a mistake, she learns that humility is not weakness. If he comforts her when she's frustrated, she learns that emotions aren't something she needs to hide. And if he models discipline, self-respect, and responsibility, she absorbs those qualities long before she ever tries to put them into practice. About halfway through this chapter's message, it becomes clear that the book wants every father to understand something beautifully simple: your daughter learns how to navigate the world by watching how you navigate yours. She studies your reactions, your self-control, your compassion, and your values. This doesn't mean fathers must be perfect, far from it. It means the effort to grow, to try, and to lead with integrity truly matters. Your daughter notices. Even when she rolls her eyes. Even when she pretends not to care. Even when she says she wants independence. She is still learning from the way you choose to live. The chapter continues by showing how daughters absorb their father's emotional patterns. A dad who responds to problems calmly teaches her resilience. A dad who takes responsibility instead of blaming teaches her accountability. A dad who respects boundaries teaches her that her voice matters. These lessons often happen unintentionally, but they are deeply imprinted. The book encourages fathers not to underestimate their influence. They are not just one voice in their daughter's life, they are often the voice she measures others against. On how a father's confidence becomes a model for his daughter's self-image. If he speaks poorly of himself, she learns that self-criticism is normal. If he carries insecurity, she may adopt the same patterns. But when he values himself, she learns she is allowed to value herself too. One father in the book openly struggled with his career path. Instead of hiding it, he talked to his daughter about perseverance, showed her how he handled setbacks, and let her see him keep trying. In the end, she grew into a young woman who believed challenges were not failures, they were opportunities. She learned this not because he told her, but because she witnessed it in him. The deeper message is that daughters learn emotional regulation, boundaries, respect, and even their beliefs about love by watching their fathers interact not only with them but with the entire world. She sees how he treats cashiers, how he handles traffic, how he talks about his boss, and whether he keeps his word. These moments create a stable emotional map, one that guides her through friendships, school experiences, and eventually her adult life. Another tender part of the chapter addresses how fathers sometimes underestimate the effect their moods have on their daughters. A father who is frequently withdrawn or irritable may think he's simply dealing with his own stress, but a daughter often interprets this as a reflection of her worth or her lovability. The chapter gently encourages fathers to explain their feelings when appropriate, to reassure their daughters that difficult emotions aren't her fault, and to help her understand that love remains steady even when life gets tough. Picture of a father who always tries to shield his daughter from the messiness of adult life. He never wants her to worry, so he hides his stress completely. Over time, she grows into a teenager who believes emotions should always be concealed, and that vulnerability is something to avoid. What the book suggests instead is balance. A father doesn't need to share every detail, but showing healthy vulnerability teaches his daughter that strength and softness can coexist. She learns that openness is not a threat but a bridge. As the chapter approaches its central message, it reminds fathers that consistency is far more powerful than perfection. What shapes a daughter is not a father who never makes mistakes, but one who keeps showing up. One who apologizes when needed. One who tries again after a difficult moment. One who models the kind of maturity she will one day expect from others. It's in these small, repeated interactions that a daughter gradually develops emotional intelligence. She learns to read situations with clarity. She learns to understand her own feelings. She learns that she deserves respect, because she grew up watching it in action. And when she steps into adolescence, a stage full of confusion, self-doubt, and emotional highs and lows, everything she learned from her father becomes a source of grounding she may not even realize she possesses. This chapter ends on a soft reflection: fathers don't need to be extraordinary to shape extraordinary daughters. They simply need to live with integrity, pay attention to their influence, and understand that their presence carries a weight that no one else can replace. A daughter doesn't need a father who always has the right answers, she needs a father who chooses patience, who models respect, and who shows her what love looks like in everyday life. And that is what makes your role not just important, but life-shaping. Chapter 3. A daughter's world is shaped not just by what her father says, but by what he shows her about strength, consistency, and character. As she grows, she watches her father closely, how he handles stress, how he treats people, how he responds when life becomes overwhelming. These quiet observations become the blueprint for how she will understand courage, conflict, patience, and resilience. And in this chapter of Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, the author gently reminds us that a father's strength is not about perfection. It's about the steady, grounded presence that teaches a girl how to feel safe in a world that can be unpredictable. Parents often wonder how to give their daughters confidence, self-respect, and emotional stability, qualities that remain strong even when life challenges them. The truth, as this chapter explains, is that girls learn stability by watching how their fathers anchor themselves. If a father is calm during chaos, she learns that storms can be navigated. If he responds to challenges with integrity, she learns integrity by imitation. And if he apologizes when he's wrong, she learns that strength and humility can exist together. One of the most touching ideas explored here is that daughters don't need their fathers to be flawless, they need them to be reliable. There's a big difference. A flawless father feels distant and impossible to understand. A reliable father feels real. And real fathers, those who show up consistently, even when they're tired or uncertain, become the emotional rock their daughters comes home from a stressful day, tempted to isolate, but instead sits down at the dinner table and asks his daughter how her day went. He still feels the weight of everything he faced, but in that moment, he chooses connection. To him, it may seem like a small act. To her, it becomes proof that she matters. Proof that even when the world demands so much from him, he still creates space for her. Without ever saying it directly, he teaches her what commitment looks like. Then picture another moment, a conflict, perhaps over a mistake she made. She fears his disappointment. She braces for anger. But instead of reacting out of frustration, he takes a breath and speaks calmly, guiding her through the consequences with firmness but compassion. That single experience models something she will use for the rest of her life: how to handle mistakes without shame. How to face problems without panic. How to communicate through tension without shutting down. These day-to-day interactions teach a girl what a stable man looks like. And later, when she chooses friends or partners, she will unconsciously seek the qualities her father consistently displayed. This is why Meeker emphasizes that a father's emotional discipline matters just as much as his words. A father who is steady becomes the internal compass his daughter carries into adulthood. Midway through the chapter, the author invites fathers to reflect on the kind of strength they embody. Not the loud, forceful kind, but the quiet strength that comes from knowing who you are and standing firmly in your values. Girls gravitate toward this type of strength because it makes them feel protected, not controlled. It makes them feel guided, not pressured. Meeker also touches on something many parents struggle with, the fear of not being good enough. Fathers often carry this quietly. They worry about failing their daughters. They worry about not knowing what to say, or not saying it right. They worry about being too hard, or not hard enough. But the book reassures fathers that their presence is far more powerful than their performance. Your daughter doesn't need you to have all the answers. She needs you to care enough to show up, listen, and guide her. For example, consider a father who doesn't always know how to respond to his daughter's emotions. Maybe she's crying over friendship problems, and he feels out of his depth. Instead of withdrawing, he simply sits beside her and says, "I'm here. Tell me what's going on." That single sentence can carry more emotional weight than any perfect advice. It tells her she's not alone. It teaches her that her feelings are worthy of attention. It shows her that even when someone doesn't fully understand, they can still be present. The chapter also explores how a father's boundaries communicate love. Girls feel most secure when their fathers set clear expectations rooted in care, not fear. When a father says no to something risky or inappropriate, he may feel like the bad guy, but in reality, he is building a protective frame around her life. Boundaries tell a daughter, "I value you too much to let the world take advantage of you." And she remembers that, even if she doesn't appreciate it in the moment. Think of a father who talks with his teenage daughter about online safety. She rolls her eyes, convinced he's being dramatic. But years later, she looks back and realizes he wasn't trying to control her, he was trying to protect her from harm she couldn't yet see. That memory becomes part of her internal safety system, a filter through which she makes wise choices as she grows. In this chapter is that fathers must be emotionally accessible, not just physically present. A girl feels truly connected when her dad notices her feelings, asks thoughtful questions, and shows genuine interest in her world. When a father listens without judgment, he becomes the safest place for her to land. And ironically, that emotional availability often comes from fathers who are humble enough to admit when they don't know something, or when they're learning right alongside their daughters. The author shares insights about the deep longing many girls carry, the longing to feel seen and valued by their fathers. When a father notices her effort, compliments her character, and shows pride in who she is becoming, her confidence grows in ways no one else can replicate. But when that affirmation is missing, she may spend years searching for it in places that cannot satisfy. One scenario illustrates this clearly. A young girl proudly brings her father a picture she drew. He's busy, distracted, and only glances at it before saying, "That's nice." She walks away unsure of whether it mattered. But imagine a slightly different moment, one where he pauses, looks directly at her, and says, "I love how creative this is. You really put thought into it." His response takes only seconds, but to her, it becomes a memory of delight, proof that her efforts are worthy of attention. These small moments accumulate. They become the inner voice she carries, either one of encouragement or one of self-doubt. And the book makes it clear that fathers play a central role in shaping which voice grows louder. The author brings everything together by reminding fathers that their role is not passive. It is foundational. Daughters rely on their fathers to anchor them, guide them, challenge them, and reassure them. And this is not a short-term responsibility. The strength a father models today becomes the strength his daughter will carry for decades. She will remember how he treated her mother. She will remember how he handled stress. She will remember how he spoke about others. She will remember whether he kept his word. These memories become the emotional and moral framework she uses when building her own life. So the message of this chapter is simple yet profound: a father who stands firm in his values, who responds with steady love, and who shows consistent presence gives his daughter one of the greatest gifts she can ever receive, a model of strength that supports her long after she has grown. If fathers understood how deeply their daughters depend on their steadiness, perhaps they would judge themselves less harshly and embrace their influence more boldly. Because as this chapter beautifully reveals, daughters don't need perfect fathers, they need strong ones. And strength, in this context, simply means showing up with love, integrity, and emotional courage, again and again. Chapter 4. As the book moves into the deeper emotional landscape of a girl's world, it becomes clear that fathers play a role that is far more powerful than most ever imagine. Chapter 4 focuses on something many parents notice but rarely understand fully: a daughter's quiet longing for emotional stability, assurance, and guidance, and how her father becomes one of the strongest influences shaping that part of her life. Even the confident ones, often wrestle with internal questions they rarely say out loud. Am I enough? Am I lovable? Can I trust people? Do I matter? These questions may show up in small ways: hesitation, sensitivity, seeking approval, withdrawing after being hurt, or looking for validation in friendships and relationships. And according to Meeker, a father's response to these moments becomes one of the most defining emotional experiences of her development. The chapter highlights how daughters watch their fathers with an almost invisible intensity. They notice how he talks to others, how he handles pressure, how he treats their mother, and how he responds when he's frustrated. None of this requires perfection, the book makes that clear. What matters most is the consistency of love and the willingness to show up, even imperfectly. When a father is calm, respectful, or responsible in his day-to-day life, he teaches her quietly that she can expect those same standards in the world around her. Meeker also explains that daughters deeply crave emotional steadiness from their dads, not loud expressions of affection, but a grounded presence that tells them, "You're safe with me." When a father listens without rushing, corrects with gentleness, or comforts without dismissing her feelings, he is building emotional wiring that strengthens her resilience. The small, everyday choices add up: a father who makes time to talk, who doesn't joke about her insecurities, who offers reassurance instead of criticism, becomes an anchor she returns to in moments of this with relatable examples. A daughter who comes home upset after a harsh comment from a friend might crumble if her father casually tells her to just ignore it. But when he slows down, listens, and reminds her of her worth, she learns not to measure herself by the behavior of others. Another daughter struggling with school pressure may interpret silence from her father as disappointment, even if that wasn't his intention. But a simple, "I'm proud of how hard you try, you don't have to be perfect," can become a memory she holds onto for years. One of the strongest messages woven into this chapter is that fathers don't need to be emotionally expressive experts, they simply need to be emotionally available. Meeker emphasizes that a father's calm presence during stressful moments teaches a girl how to navigate her own storms. His belief in her becomes the lens through which she learns to believe in herself. His patience becomes her model for handling conflict. His kindness becomes the standard she uses to judge future partners and friendships. The chapter also touches on how emotional connection influences a daughter's long-term mental health. Girls who grow up knowing they are valued and emotionally supported by their fathers tend to develop healthier self-esteem, better stress coping skills, and a stronger ability to form stable relationships. It doesn't eliminate challenges, but it strengthens her inner foundation, the part of her that decides, "I can handle this." By the end of the chapter, one thing becomes unmistakably clear: a father's emotional presence is not simply supportive, it is transformative. He becomes both a steady voice of reason and a source of comfort. He becomes a model of stability she will unconsciously seek throughout her life. And most importantly, he becomes the first experience of unconditional acceptance that she carries into adulthood. There comes a moment in every father's journey when he realizes that his daughter is not only watching him, she is learning from him in ways he may never fully see. This chapter explores one of the most powerful truths in the entire book: a daughter's sense of how the world works is shaped, piece by piece, by the example her father sets long before she can articulate it. What he treats as normal becomes her definition of normal. What he tolerates, she imitates. And what he values, she quietly absorbs. Dr. Meeker explains that fathers don't need to be perfect to influence their daughters for good. They only need to be present with intention. A girl studies her father's reactions, his tone of voice, how he handles frustration, how he apologizes, and even how he speaks to strangers. These small moments become her internal script for adulthood. For example, when a father listens patiently, even on days he's tired, his daughter learns that her voice matters. If he chooses honesty when it's difficult, she learns that truth is worth standing for. And if he shows respect to her mother, she learns instinctively what respect feels like and what she should expect in her own relationships. This chapter also reminds fathers that their authority, whether they realize it or not, carries emotional weight. A careless criticism can sink deeper than intended. A rushed moment can be misread as rejection. But just as deeply, a sincere, "I'm proud of you," can stay with a girl for years, giving her strength during moments when the world feels overwhelming. Fathers often underestimate how much their words shape their daughters' confidence. Dr. Meeker encourages dads to speak courage into their daughters, not by flattery, but by naming real strengths they observe: kindness, effort, creativity, resilience, or integrity. These are compliments that help girls build a foundation that no trend, peer group or cultural pressure can easily shake. Chapter is the father's role as a compass. Not a dictator, not a distant advisor, but a steady moral guide. Girls live in a world that constantly tells them who they should be: prettier, thinner, louder, quieter, smarter, more perfect. A father's voice, when grounded in love, becomes the one place where a daughter learns she is already enough. She looks to him to understand where her real value comes from. When he teaches her that her worth isn't measured by likes, attention or appearance, she walks into life with a rare kind of confidence. One of the most touching ideas here is the importance of demonstrating strength, not the loud, forceful kind, but the strong gentleness that shows control, patience, and emotional steadiness. For instance, a father who manages stress without taking it out on the family teaches his daughter what emotional discipline looks like. A father who admits mistakes and apologizes teaches humility. A father who works hard without complaining teaches perseverance. None of these require grand gestures. They are lived lessons, absorbed naturally, day after day. The chapter also paints a realistic picture: fathers will make mistakes. They'll get distracted, lose their temper, or misunderstand their daughters. Dr. Meeker reassures dads that what matters more than perfection is repair. A moment of "I shouldn't have said that, I'm sorry" builds more trust than pretending nothing happened. When a girl sees her father own his faults gracefully, she learns the priceless skill of restoring relationships instead of abandoning them. By the end of this chapter, Dr. Meeker brings everything back to a simple but profound truth: daughters do not need flawless fathers, they need present, steady, good-enough fathers, men who try, who show up, who keep growing. A father who strives, even imperfectly, to be the kind of person he hopes his daughter becomes, gives her a model she will carry forever. As we move into the next part of this journey, the book shifts its focus to something many fathers rarely pause to consider: the enormous influence they have on their daughters' understanding of the world outside the home, especially the cultural messages that shape her beliefs about identity, beauty, worth, love, and success. This chapter emphasizes that while culture grows louder, faster, and more confusing every year, a father's steady voice can still rise above the noise, if he chooses to use it. Dr. Meeker explains that fathers are one of the strongest defenses a girl has against the pressures of modern society. She listens to his approval more deeply than the world realizes, and his guidance becomes the filter she uses to interpret the messages constantly thrown at her. One of the strongest ideas in this chapter is that girls today grow up in an environment filled with unrealistic standards. Whether through media, social platforms, or peer pressure, daughters are told what they should look like, who they should impress, and what they must achieve to be good enough. These expectations can create insecurity and confusion, even in the most confident girls. But standing quietly behind all of that noise is her father, the one voice that can bring her back to truth. Dr. Meeker explains that a father becomes his daughter's cultural anchor. He steadies her in a world that often tries to pull her toward insecurity, comparison, or self-doubt. When a father speaks, really speaks, with love and conviction, it becomes a grounding reminder that she is valued for who she is, not for the standards society tries to impose on her. Imagine a young girl scrolling through endless images online. She compares herself to people she's never met, wondering why she doesn't look like them, or why her life isn't as perfect as theirs seems to be. Her father may not understand every trend or every new app, but what he can understand, and greatly influence, is how she sees herself. A father who tells his daughter, "You are enough," or, "I love the person you are becoming," gives her a stronger foundation than any social pressure can shake. Another part of this chapter touches on how important it is for fathers to teach their daughters about boundaries, especially when it comes to relationships, friendships, and personal choices. A girl who knows her worth is less likely to accept unhealthy treatment from peers or future partners. And fathers play a huge role in forming that self-worth. Dr. Meeker describes how a father can gently but firmly help his daughter understand her value by affirming her character, setting expectations for respect, and modeling what healthy connection looks like. When he treats her with gentleness, responsibility, and honor, he quietly shows her what she should expect from others. She learns how she deserves to be treated, not because someone lectured her, but because she lived in it every day. The chapter also cautions fathers not to underestimate how powerful their silence can be. A father who doesn't comment on troubling cultural messages might unintentionally send the message that the world's standards are acceptable or unimportant. Instead, the book encourages fathers to engage with their daughter's world, ask questions about what she sees, what she hears, and what she believes about herself because of it. These conversations don't have to be heavy or constant. Even small, thoughtful talks help her feel supported and understood. Here is that fathers don't need to fight culture, loudly or dramatically. They simply need to provide a safe, steady emotional home. When a girl knows she can return to her father for honesty, reassurance, and perspective, she becomes far less vulnerable to pressures that try to distort her sense of self. The chapter gives the example of a teenager who struggles with wanting to fit in. She feels torn between what she knows is right and what her peers expect. Her father doesn't lecture her, instead, he listens. He asks questions. He helps her think critically. And he reminds her that he trusts her judgment. Through that calm, respectful conversation, she feels empowered, not controlled. She learns that she can stand on her own values without losing her place in the world. Dr. Meeker highlights that fathers also influence their daughters by demonstrating what truly matters. A father who prioritizes integrity over popularity, kindness over competition, effort over perfection teaches lessons his daughter will carry far beyond adolescence. She grows up knowing that authenticity is more valuable than approval and that character is stronger than image. The chapter closes with a message of encouragement for every father, especially those who feel overwhelmed by the fast pace of modern life. You don't have to understand everything your daughter faces, you just have to remain her steady source of truth. Your belief in her becomes her shield. Your values become her compass. Your presence becomes her clarity. In a world filled with noise, a father's love remains one of the clearest, strongest voices a daughter will ever hear. Chapter 7 turns our attention to the powerful role a father plays in shaping how his daughter sees herself in a world filled with pressure, comparison, and noise. Dr. Meeker explains that a girl's confidence is constantly tested by cultural expectations, social media, and the subtle messages she absorbs every day. In the middle of all this, a father's voice becomes a grounding force, the place she returns to when the world feels confusing or unkind. Imagine a daughter scrolling through social media and instantly feeling inadequate. In those moments, the beliefs her father has consistently spoken into her, that she is capable, strong, and valued, become the quiet inner confidence she carries everywhere. A dad doesn't have to give long lectures to shape her identity, even simple, steady affirmations can speak life into her and remind her of her worth. Dr. Meeker also warns that many girls fall into unhealthy patterns when they feel pressured to fit in or earn acceptance. But a father who stays emotionally present helps reduce her vulnerability to the temptations and false promises the culture puts in front of her. By modeling integrity, self-respect, and emotional steadiness, he shows her what healthy strength looks like and teaches her that it's okay to stand apart from the crowd. Ultimately, this chapter reminds fathers that even when their daughters don't say it out loud, they deeply rely on their dad's reassurance and example. Culture may push them in different directions, but a loving father becomes the steady voice that helps them stay grounded in who they truly are. Chapter 8 continues to explore a theme many fathers underestimate until the moment it unfolds before them: a daughter's natural desire to step into the world, make choices, take risks, and emotionally stretch beyond the comfort of her childhood. This chapter gently reminds fathers that girls grow by experimenting with independence, yet they thrive when that independence rests on a clear sense of where home truly is. And for a daughter, home often means her father's steady, protective presence, even when she doesn't show it as plainly as she once did. Margaret Meeker highlights how a girl's life is full of pressures that often pull her in conflicting directions. School pushes her toward performance. Friendships push her toward belonging. The world pushes her toward appearance and perfection. And as she grows older, romantic attention begins to pull her toward validation and curiosity. Amid all of these forces, a strong father becomes her anchor. Not by restricting her world, but by helping her understand it, step by step. A father who creates a safe emotional environment gives his daughter the courage to explore without losing herself. Meeker paints a picture of a girl stepping into adolescence, her confidence sometimes shaky, her emotions unpredictable, her desire for freedom rising. She may roll her eyes, or claim she doesn't need guidance, but beneath that surface is a quiet question she desperately hopes her father will answer: am I safe? Am I loved? A simple moment illustrates this beautifully. A father is driving his teenage daughter home from school. She talks about wanting to join a new club, or spend the weekend with friends. Her voice sounds casual, but inside she's watching for his reaction. She wants him to care enough to ask questions, to notice details, to express concern without suffocating her. She wants room to grow, but not so much room that she feels invisible. Meeker explains that this delicate balance is where a father's strength becomes most meaningful. He is meant to be firm but kind, open but watchful, flexible but grounded in values. The book emphasizes that fathers cannot protect their daughters from every challenge. What they can do is teach them how to face life confidently. Through conversations, sometimes short and awkward, sometimes deep and transformative, a father passes down his wisdom: how to set boundaries, how to recognize unhealthy relationships, how to handle peer pressure, how to trust her intuition, how to walk away from situations that don't honor her values. These lessons, even when lightly delivered, stay with her longer than she ever admits. Meeker stresses that daughters gain enormous strength from knowing their fathers believe in them. A father who constantly reminds his daughter that she is capable, intelligent, and worthy becomes the voice she returns to in moments of doubt. She may forget the exact words, but she will never forget how he made her feel: safe, seen, and valued. In this chapter, the message is unmistakable: daughters don't outgrow their need for their fathers. The shape of the relationship changes, yes, but the core remains the same. Even when she seems distant, even when she's busy growing into her own life, even when she's stumbling through mistakes or stretching her limits, she is still deeply influenced by the strength, presence, and steadiness with a reassuring truth. Fathers do not need to be perfect to be powerful in their daughters' lives. They simply need to remain consistent, showing up, paying attention, guiding with love, and never underestimating the impact they carry. A daughter who knows her father stands with her becomes a young woman who stands confidently in the world. Chapter 9. Chapter 9 returns to one of the book's most important truths: daughters look to their fathers to understand what is safe, what is right, and what is worth trusting in the world. Even when a girl seems strong, independent, or uninterested in guidance, she is quietly watching the way her father handles life. And in this chapter, the book gently shows how much a father's leadership, steady, calm, and morally grounded, shapes a girl's inner compass long before she realizes it. This part of the story reminds parents that a girl does not only learn from the words spoken to her. She pays attention to how her father manages pressure, how he treats people who can't give him anything in return, how he handles conflict, and whether he keeps his word. A father may think his daughter isn't noticing these small behaviors, but she is. These moments become the silent lessons she carries into adulthood. The author explains that a father's strength is not about being loud or forceful. True strength is consistency. It is showing up. It is modeling self-control when life feels chaotic. It is admitting mistakes, apologizing, and demonstrating humility. When a girl witnesses this kind of steady leadership at home, she forms a quiet confidence inside herself. She learns that strength can be soft, and that real authority is rooted in integrity rather than anger. Scenarios: a father driving calmly in traffic instead of shouting, choosing honesty when tempted to cut corners at work, or showing patience when a teenager slams a door. These ordinary moments become emotional anchors. They teach a daughter that stability is not the absence of problems, but the presence of character. And when a father guides with intention, whether it's setting boundaries around friendships, helping her think through a difficult decision, or reminding her of her values when she feels confused, she gains a sense of direction. She begins to trust her own judgment because she has witnessed her father use his with wisdom. The beauty of this chapter lies in its reassurance: a father does not need to be perfect to influence his daughter powerfully. He only needs to be present and principled. Even quiet leadership can shape her sense of responsibility, encourage her independence, and steady her when life pulls her in different directions. By the time this chapter closes, the message becomes clear. When a father leads his family with character, consistency, and compassion, he gives his daughter a gift that lasts her entire life, an inner map she can follow when the world becomes overwhelming, and a living example of what dependable love looks like. Chapter 10. As the journey of this book brings us into its final chapter, the message becomes both simple and deeply powerful: a father's influence doesn't fade as his daughter grows, it transforms. This chapter reminds parents that even when a girl steps into her teens or adulthood, the imprint of her father's presence continues to guide her choices, her self-worth, and the way she navigates the world. Many fathers assume their daughters eventually outgrow them, but the truth is that daughters never stop needing what a father uniquely gives: strength, steadiness, and a strong belief in who they are. An honest picture of what happens as a girl matures. Her world expands, pressures increase, society tells her to look outside herself for validation, and peers start to matter in ways that feel overwhelming. Yet beneath all of that noise, she still listens for her father's voice, the voice that shaped her earliest picture of protection, love, and identity. A father may feel replaced by friends or sidelined by her growing independence, but the emotional blueprint he set remains one of the strongest forces in her life. Chapter 10 encourages fathers not to retreat during these changing seasons, but to adapt. Instead of trying to control, they learn to support. Instead of lecturing, they learn to guide. Instead of pulling away when their daughter seems distant, they remain quietly steady, showing through their actions that their love is not conditional, fragile, or dependent on her behavior. This steady presence becomes a shelter she will return to again and again, even if she doesn't always show it directly. The chapter offers a relatable example of a dad who assumed his teenage daughter didn't care about his opinions anymore. She rolled her eyes, spent hours in her room, and constantly compared herself to others. What he didn't realize was that she was watching him closely: how he managed stress, how he treated her mother, how he handled failure, and whether he believed in her during moments she doubted herself. When he finally shifted from reacting to her behavior to simply being the safe, consistent figure in her life, she naturally opened up again. The message is that daughters don't stop needing their dads, they just need them in a different, more emotionally intelligent way. On the idea that fathers are role models even in the smallest, most ordinary moments. The way a father responds when life gets overwhelming teaches his daughter something about resilience. The way he apologizes when he's wrong teaches her about humility. The way he listens without judgment teaches her that she deserves to be heard. And the way he shows respect to women teaches her what kind of respect she should expect in her own relationships. These lessons, though subtle, guide her long after childhood is over. A meaningful point in this chapter is the reminder that fathers should embrace the long view. Raising a daughter isn't about fixing every problem or eliminating every fear, it's about shaping her character, helping her feel loved without conditions, and making sure she knows she is never alone, regardless of the stage she's in. Even when she becomes an adult with her own family, career, and responsibilities, a father's encouragement still matters. His belief in her still matters. His gentle pride in who she is still matters. And she carries that emotional grounding into the world, often passing the same strength to her own children someday. By the close of this chapter, the tone becomes deeply reflective. The book reminds fathers that their daughters don't need perfection, they need presence. They don't need a flawless hero, they need a steady one. And they don't need a father who has all the answers, they need one who is willing to walk with them as they find their own. The chapter leaves fathers with a comforting truth: even if they've made mistakes, even if they wish they had done things differently, it is never too late to strengthen the relationship. Daughters are far more forgiving and open-hearted than many fathers realize, and sincerity has the power to rebuild what may feel broken or distant. The message is tender and hopeful. A father's love, quiet, strong, imperfect, but deeply committed, becomes one of the greatest gifts a daughter carries throughout her life. That love shapes her decisions, her sense of worth, and the way she rises after life's challenges. And long after childhood memories fade, what remains is the unshakable assurance that she was valued, protected, and believed in by the first man who ever loved her. When fathers understand that their influence is lifelong, they begin to see every interaction as an opportunity to strengthen the foundation they've been building all along. And with that understanding comes a comforting realization: being a strong father isn't about knowing everything, it's about showing up with love, stability, and the quiet courage to keep choosing connection, no matter the season. If this summary has brought you clarity or encouragement today, go ahead and like this video so more parents can discover it too. And if you'd love to keep growing on your parenting journey through more powerful book summaries like this one, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Feel free to share this video with another parent who might need it. And to let me know you found this helpful, drop the word "helpful" in the comments section. I can't wait to read your thoughts.